Welcome back to the channel, guys. There are scandals that damage governments, and then there are scandals that expose something deeper: judgment, culture, instinct. The Lord Doyle affair has become the latter. Sir Keir Starmer nominated Matthew Doyle for a peerage despite being aware that Doyle had supported Sean Morton, a councillor charged with serious child sex offences, because Doyle believed in his innocence at the time. That's not opposition spin. Downing Street has admitted Starmer was aware of the support before the peerage was formalised, and that's where the real political problem begins. Because this wasn't sprung on number 10 at the last minute. Concerns were raised in early December. An internal discussion took place. Interviews were conducted. Starmer was informed. The peerage was announced on December the 10th, and even after further reporting on December the 27th highlighted Doyle's campaigning activities, there were 12 days before the letters patent were sealed. 12 days when the government could have paused or reconsidered. House of Lords clerks have since confirmed there were no barriers to stopping or delaying the appointment, yet it went ahead. This isn't about legal guilt by association. Doyle was not convicted of anything. He says he believed in Morton's protestations of innocence prior to conviction and has apologised for his support. That's his defence. The political question is different. Why, once doubts were clearly raised, did the Prime Minister not exercise caution? Peerages are not routine HR promotions. They are lifetime honours. They place individuals in the legislature of this country permanently. The thresholds for scrutiny should be exceptionally high. Instead, what we're seeing looks disturbingly like institutional complacency. The timeline tells its own story. Whistleblowers raised concerns. Senior Labour figures were informed. An internal inquiry happened. A communications chief interviewed Doyle, someone he had known professionally for years. The peerage was announced anyway. Then after media pressure intensified and female Labour MPs publicly expressed anger, the whip was removed. That sequence doesn't look like leadership, it looks like reaction. And that's what has infuriated many within Labour's own ranks. Now, I spoke about this yesterday, but several senior women in the party have openly criticised the culture inside number 10, describing it as a boys' club. Lisa Nandy spoke of briefings dripping with misogyny. Emma Lewell described the pain of being confronted in the street over the perception that Labour was morally compromised. When your own MPs are warning that voters are questioning the government's moral compass, there is no longer a narrow scandal, it is a credibility crisis. And here is the uncomfortable truth. This comes just weeks after the Manderson controversy. Two separate peerage-linked crises, both involving judgment calls at the very top. Now, one could be misfortune, but two begins to look like a pattern. Starmer built his entire political identity around seriousness, professionalism, and restoring trust after what he framed as years of chaos. He promised standards would rise. He promised things would be different. But what voters are seeing is a government that only shifts position once the headlines becomes unbearable. Supporters will argue that Doyle misled number 10 by not being fully forthcoming about his campaigning activity. If that's true, then it raises another question. How robust was the vetting process? Peerages are supposed to undergo scrutiny by the House of Lords Appointments Commission. Due diligence is not optional. Either the system failed or political urgency overrode caution. Neither explanation inspires confidence. The deeper issue here isn't about one man, it's about how power operates in modern Westminster. Peerages have long been criticised as rewards for insiders, loyalists and long-standing party operatives. Doyle was a former Downing Street communications director. He was embedded in the system. He was known. And sometimes being known breeds blind spots. Ordinary members of the public would not expect someone with any controversy surrounding their judgment in such a sensitive manner to be fast-tracked into legislature. They expect higher standards for lawmakers than for local activists. When that expectation is not met, trust erodes. This scandal also intersects with Labour's internal gender tensions. Female MPs feel sidelined. They feel the culture protects insiders first and listens later. They feel optics matter more than principle. That perception, fair or not, is politically lethal. Because once voters begin to suspect that moral standards are negotiable for friends of the leadership, every future decision is viewed through that lens. Now, to be clear, there is no evidence that Starmer condoned wrongdoing. The issue is not criminality, it is judgment, timing, prudence. And leadership is tested precisely in those moments where caution is warranted. Could Starmer have paused the appointment when fresh reporting emerged? Yes. Was there time before the letters patent was sealed? Yes. Did he? No. That is the political fact that will linger. This episode will not collapse the government overnight, but it chips away at the central claim of Starmer's premiership, that he is the safe pair of hands restoring integrity. Integrity is not measured by statements in the Commons, it is measured by decisions taken before pressure forces them. And in this case, pressure forced a change. For British voters watching from outside Westminster, the lesson feels depressingly familiar. Insiders rise, warnings are downplayed, and action only comes when headlines demand it. Starmer may survive this storm again, but the narrative damage is real. Because once the Prime Minister's judgment is publicly doubted, not just by the opposition, but by members of his own party, it becomes far harder to convince the country that standards have truly changed. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want more honest political commentary and don't want to miss what's really happening behind the headlines, hit that subscribe button and drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you'd like to support the channel's independent work, then there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description.